This is episode 222 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Control and Compound Financial. They teach real estate investors how to multiply their wealth using infinite banking strategies. For a complimentary wealth coaching session or to learn more, visit www.controlandcompound.com/Andrew Hines. Welcome back to the show. Today I have Darren Knill on the show, and Darren is a very interesting guy who started investing back in the early 2010s, and he did a little bit of Keyspire, and then he eventually bought a duplex, which he house hacked, and now he's doing developments in small towns. So he is buying buildings on the main streets of small towns like Delhi, Waterford, Ontario, Simcoe, Ontario, and dealing with their municipalities, staying within the existing zoning bylaws. So if it's a mixed use property on the main street, you know, those commercial storefronts with apartments over top and a red brick building, well, he's buying that type of thing and retrofitting them, restoring them back to what they were at one point, and then renting them out for some serious cash flow. So we went through a case study in today's episode where he was able to do a building that ended up being worth $3.7 million on the appraisal. He pocketed $400,000 with his partner on the deal, and then the property still cash flowed $8,300 a month, according to the cash flow I calculated on the show. So these are pretty awesome deals. I would call that a grand slam home run type deal. And it seems like he's lining more of those up. Another one that we talked about was a gas station that he recently bought, and he handled the remediation. So we talked about what's involved in that. There's something you have to do called an environmental study. Phase 1 and a phase 2 are the different testings, and then a phase 3 is the remediation. So he did the whole shebang, cost him about $50,000 plus another $25,000 in demo. So I would say to simplify it, Darren's a pretty aggressive investor that makes very calculated moves, and it was a real treat to just dig into these deals with him. And I think you're going to like it a lot. Just a reminder that monthly I host the Greater Toronto Area West meetup. So the GTA West REI meetup. If you are in the area, or if you're anywhere in the Golden Horseshoe or even further than that, and you just want to come out and chat real estate, join our private Facebook group. It's totally free to join. It's totally free to attend the events. All we ask is that you please support the businesses that are hosting us. So right now we're hosting it at West Ave Cider. Please support them because that allows us to keep the event free. And one thing to do is join the group so that you're there, and then RSVP to the event. It's on the group. It'll be pinned at the top. If there's not one there, just stay tuned. It'll be there soon for the next event. And if you're enjoying the show, I ask that you please rate and review it on any of the audio platforms that you listen on. 5 stars would be greatly appreciated, and it helps get it out to more people. Same goes for YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave us a comment. Again, these things just help get the algorithm, get this video out to more people, and grow the podcast. So without further ado, let's jump into episode 222. Hello and welcome to the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. I've got Darren Knill on the show, and he is connected from some mutual acquaintances that I have. So Darren, thanks for doing this, number one. And
thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So tell me a little bit about why we're sitting here.
Well, kind of like from, where real estate started. I did post at Canary School, graduated structural engineering.
Okay, so you're a structural engineer?
Yep.
Okay.
Structural engineer. Kind of came out of school, did went right into a corporate role.
Okay. Whereabouts were you working?
Worked for a consulting manufacturing company just outside of Brantford, Ontario.
Okay.
And, quickly decided after, we spent this much time and energy going to school that sitting at a desk really wasn't gonna pencil out for me.
Yeah. Who actually likes sitting at a desk long term? I don't know.
No.
It's not a thing for me anyways.
So yeah, from there I started to I went to a couple Keyspire seminars.
Okay. Did you do like the summit, like the full membership?
Yeah. Back when it's gotten
when it was Lifetime Wealth Academy, or
yes.
Okay.
Right from the start, did the weekend thing, and kind of took it from there.
Okay. So what year would that have been? Like you would have been like 2016 or something like that?
2013 is when I started.
2013? Was it? They were running back then?
Yep.
I'm trying to remember the first one because we used to do the talks on mortgages at those events. And I'm trying to remember when that was. Like we might have even met each other way back when, before I had a podcast and, you know, was known for talking about this stuff. So anyways, okay. So you started then what, like you were working full time at that point?
Yep.
And you're just kind of not really loving it. And were you approaching that with the angle, I want to find a way to replace this income and not need to work this job anymore?
Yeah. Yes and no. I hadn't really realized the power of real estate. It was more, I grew up working on a farm. So to go from working with my hands, I knew that wasn't, you know, the end goal where it was going to be. But to go from working with my hands every day to sitting at a desk was a large adjustment for me that I probably really didn't think through as I was going. It's been 6 years at school.
Everybody, I think, just kind of hears that you're supposed to go to school, you know, get a good job, which means not in the trades, don't do things with your hands, which to me is insane. Like, I think that it's one of the most noble things you can do to work with your hands and create things.
And it just goes to show the shortage of construction labor that we have that, I mean, we really need to start promoting that. So I had went from, you know, I'd worked myself up to a manager in that department in a small growing company, bought my first house, which was a duplex conversion. So it kind of worked in hand on some of my education worked towards that.
So you were like 2014, you were doing this, 2013?
Yep.
So you did a duplex conversion back then. That was really fresh back then. There wasn't even much legislation for that, but that was working Brantford?
Yep.
Did you start?
Yep.
Okay, so you were able to do it there. Cash flow must have worked pretty well back then.
Worked very well. I mean, I think I bought that house for $193.
$193 purchase, and you're renovating, what, 50 grand or something?
Yep.
And what were you able to get on rent after that?
I mean, for the 3-bedroom upstairs, they probably at the time were in for, you know, $1,300.
13 on the upstairs, and then downstairs would have been like, what, 800 or 900?
Actually moved in down there.
You moved on?
Yep.
There you go. Great house hack.
Yep. So right from the start, before, you know, all of these things became talked about and more.
It was very uncommon at that point. Yeah, I mean, duplexes were a thing, but the up-down conversion, that was new legislation around then.
Yes.
It took London until 17 or 18 to implement that.
So it was still, like, to say, again, I did everything kind of on my own learning, stumbled through it, you know, worked with the inspectors, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But, I mean, at that time, I was 2013, I would have been 23, first house, mortgage was paid for, had a little bit of extra money.
Yeah.
And it, you know, really opened my eyes to everything.
Oh, that's amazing, right? Like, that changes your entire financial picture when you no longer have to pay to live. Like your upstairs covers your mortgage, and now you're just like, okay, so how do I use my time to create more wealth?
Exactly.
Whereas most people, what they're doing is they're spending before they have the income to cover it, and it's always an active income. So they have to earn money to pay for their home, which they can never spend time at. This is what real estate investors figured out. Well, I mean, the ones in like 10 years ago really found it out well. And then it got harder and harder to do it.
Yes.
Still possible. Yep. But I think now you just got to keep your eyes open for the opportunity and where it works.
Yeah, and it's, you know, harder to make the numbers pencil out now.
Yeah.
But again, it's time in the market.
Yeah, time in the market. Also, I think understanding how to make a deal work, right? Like getting creative, confidence to get creative, and that's time in the market that'll allow you to do that.
But you got to start.
Yeah, you do have to start. So if you were starting right now, what would you do?
I mean, I would tell anyone else, you know, similar, try to do something similar to what we start when you're young, before you understand your current expenses. So if you can do it while you're at home before you buy that first house, then great. But even if, you know, you're outside renting, you need to start by understanding your finances, live beneath your income, and, you know, start working towards eventually buying that house. Because even if it's that duplex or triplex that allows you to get into the market, they're going to use that other rental income from those other units to
help qualify you.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. Like, you can do a house hack also, and the bank won't really appreciate this, but you can do renting out bedrooms, right? Like lots of people do that. And that's a great way. Like, don't try and keep up with the Joneses when you're getting started. Like, I lived with family for most of my 20s so that I could keep getting mortgages. Like I sacrificed hugely so that I could grow my real estate portfolio and not have my own home. Like, I think that's something that if you're willing to do that before you have kids, I mean, you should be willing. Because once you have kids, you sure won't be doing that.
Yes.
And that's kind of the thought I have. But yeah, so for sure, the house hack, the up-down duplex, like that's still a viable strategy. Of course, now it's probably your third unit. If you can go out and build it yourself, maybe you get a good deal. It's obviously getting much more expensive to build stuff, but there's still an angle, there's still creative deals. And the most important thing, like you said, is starting and then constantly analyzing deals, like daily. If you're new, you're daily analyzing deals, running numbers, going through zoning bylaws, finding out what you can do, can't do, visiting City Hall. I would do all that stuff. I was in City Hall so well that they knew me, just asking them questions. Hey, what if I did this? Hey, what about this property? These are the things that help you get going. So you've you mentioned to me you've done some other podcasts. You've obviously accomplished a few things. Tell me a bit more about this story. Like, you learned the power of real estate. You were house hacking. What happened after?
So from there, we were in again, a lot of we started in Brantford, Ontario, so we were able to really focus on the downtown, which was where Laurier was growing. So we bought from right after that. It was like, okay, what's next? So we bought a duplex, we bought a triplex, we bought a fourplex.
Okay.
And it was not all together at the same time. It was buy one, typical BRRRR.
Like, do a BRRRR,
refresh
and
it,
buy another
refinance,
with that money.
Step into the next one.
Okay.
Then, the third one, my parents finally awakened to this real estate thing that I had been talking to them. So we partnered on the fourplex to go from there. And then at that point, I was out at actual a meetup, and I met my business partner there.
Okay.
And from there we had he was quite a bit older than me, had 20 plus years in real estate, and I was kind of getting to the point where it's like, okay, we've done these 4 properties. Where does the money come? How do we continue to do
grow,
this?
Yeah.
And I really hadn't thought about, I was still working my day job at the time. I really hadn't thought about transferring this into a business. But from there, we partnered up. We did we did another couple duplex conversions, a triplex conversion, just to kind of see if the fit would work.
Yeah, like why bring a partner in on that?
Well, to complement skills that I didn't have.
Yeah.
So I'm very strong in the technical, the construction aspect, but the raising funds part, which I didn't have, it was all foreign to me. I did not have any background in that.
Some people just like it. Like, my friend Mike and I partnered with him on like starting up a company to flip properties, and it was basically a conversation like this. It's like, well, you find the deals. He's like, I'll just make sure there's always money, like, and not even mortgages. Like, there was just, here's $400,000 in the account, and to me that was like, great. Yes. I'll run with that. You get the money.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's more or less how our partnership works now. Like, so we've realized that multifamily and mixed use was where we wanted to be. It was allowing us to focus in older parts of downtowns in these cities, which needed revitalization. There was grants available. We were getting breaks on development fees.
Which cities?
So we're Brantford, Brant County. We're south, so in Norfolk. So there's 3 small towns we like to focus on.
Simcoe,
Waterford,
Delhi. Well, Waterford's really small.
Yep.
Really small. Yep. Delhi. We just bought a truck in Waterford. We're actually picking it up today.
Well,
tomorrow. Yeah. So very small towns. I mean, that's like my childhood. Those places, because Tilsonburg's right next door.
Yep.
Yeah.
But small towns where we're seeing, as we've seen, especially through COVID, we've seen the growth and the sprawl, where everyone thinking that they're going to be able to work from home forever.
Yeah.
They continue to push out. So a lot of the Brantford saw a lot of growth.
Yeah.
The people in Brantford and Paris continued to expand out. And at that time, we were doing one of our larger projects in Waterford, and we were like, no one knows about this place. Are we going to have issues?
Yeah. Well, with present circumstance, it seems fairly evident that if there's a structure standing, there's going to be somebody who wants to either rent it or own it and live in it. When you have lack of housing, it's like people just keep looking, where can I afford? They don't, I mean, it's almost less of a consideration that they'll spend hours driving to go to work. They just need a place to live.
Exactly.
Affordable, like, you know, reasonably affordable.
So we found that a lot of these, a lot of the people in the Brantfords, and as those grew, they came out and we didn't have any issues. You know, our concern was these smaller, who wants to live in these smaller towns, but people want to live anywhere.
Their bedrooms is what they are.
Exactly.
I could never wrap my head around this. I spent like 10 years, probably 7, trying to figure out what makes a good market, what doesn't. I could not rationalize it in my head. So I knew I liked London, but I couldn't figure out, like, why would somebody invest in Tillsonburg, you know, when they could invest in London or Woodstock or, you know, something on the corridor. And then it became so much clearer as prices started to shoot up why people do it. It was always a deal to go to these towns. It was a lot less bankable 10 years ago. Now it's just like, it's golden, or at least it feels that way. Like, and nothing's ever, you know, for sure. But when you have so many people coming into this country and they just, you know, it's either A, too expensive to build more, or B, too restricted. Whatever's there and standing, odds are it's going to do okay.
And as we continued to work in these small towns, we found that, you know, although a little bit slow, the government was very receptive to the growth, which compounded what we were doing as well. And
they're much less rigid in small towns. Like they don't have as much structure in their city halls. Like, it's like, oh, well, yeah, that sounds okay to us. It's not like, hey, let me check our paperwork. It's like, what are you thinking? Okay, yeah, I think we can get behind that.
Very much so. Yep.
Yeah, and that's kind of nice in a way. There's pros and cons to that.
Yep.
Because when they are less organized, it, you know, can make things go challenging sometimes. But generally speaking, yeah, I kind of like dealing with the smaller towns.
And they've treated us very well to the point where we've kind of doubled down. So we moved out from Brantford to Brant County again. We still own property and manage stuff there. And then you know, we did 18 units in Waterford. And, you know, renovated an old, it was a really old factory. We built a microbrewery in there. Really cool project.
So you're taking stuff and converting use now?
Yes.
And who's handling the development side of things with the...
So we handle all of that in-house.
Like, you and your partner handle it together equally? Or who's like the point man dealing with the city?
So that would be myself.
Yeah. Okay. And are you hiring urban planners, or are you just doing it yourself? You're going to site plan meetings yourself?
So on the projects that we're doing now, where we're actually developing land, our consultant team, so our planners or architects, are working with us.
So you do have an urban planner. Okay, this must be a bigger project.
Yeah. So we do, and we can into some future stuff as we've kind of doubled down out there. But yeah, so it very much started with, you know, this particular building. We bought it permit ready to go. It was just an odd thing that I came up on Kijiji.
What is it? Tell me what it is.
So it was an old warehouse. We had
like how many square feet?
2-level warehouse, 9,000 a floor, so it was 18,000 square feet.
Okay.
We did, and this old gentleman, just very ambitious, you know, old guy in his 80s, thought he could do it all himself. In real estate, it was just, he just never really got it through that he couldn't actually do this. So we put it up on Kijiji, and we called him the next day saying, like, what's actually going on here?
And who needs a realtor? It's going on Kijiji.
Exactly. Yeah. Someone will buy. The right person will find it on Kijiji.
Yeah.
But small town. And so we, you know, went through a couple months of due diligence, etc. And we closed on the building. So it was 2 commercial units, so mixed use, and then 16 one-bedrooms kind of in and around the 2 commercial units.
So you had 18,000 square feet with residential units attached to it?
No, it's so included in the 18,000 square feet, so mixed use. So
okay.
The street fronts are commercial.
Okay.
And then on the second level and in behind in that same building.
And what's it look like? Is it like an old building?
Yep. Like an old, it'd be like 1900s architecture, you know, large windows, tall ceilings.
And how many units did you say there were?
So 16 one bedrooms, and then the 2
commercials. Yep. Okay, yeah, I'm trying to get a picture from this. This is something you might see on the main street of a of an older town.
Yep.
When you're
Like an
driving
older
through,
downtown
and you're on the
building.
main street there.
Yes.
That's why it all adds up now. Okay, so I got a good mental picture for that. So you bought that with what intent?
So we bought it with the intent to again, we didn't have the intent to completely renovate it. So we did everything from, ripping the brick facade out and putting on a brand new facade to the inside was just an open shell, beam and column structure.
Yeah.
Kind of use your imagination.
But why would you want to get rid of the facade? Because that's like the charm of the old town, like the brick facade.
That was more just deteriorating.
It was just not in good condition anymore. What'd you replace it with?
New brick.
Oh, you did re-bricked it?
Yep.
Oh, so you knocked out the whole brick wall and re-bricked it.
So again, very old traditional. It was actually a triple brick.
Triple brick. Okay, so you just took off the first layer?
Yep.
Oh, all
Put
right.
on a brand new layer. Yep.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah, I thought you got rid of the brick. I'm like, no, you can't do that.
No, it pains me to go through, older downtown places where someone has just sided over a nice
Brick, yeah.
brick with, traditional architecture that we don't see anymore.
Man, the way they used to build houses, like I look at all these new houses and then you just go down like an old Victorian area of like Woodstock or London and you see these incredible homes. I'm like, why don't they just build that now? Like that is so classy. Like it's going to be classy in another 20 years. Whereas some of these modern looks, maybe they don't fly in 20 years.
It's hard to know what's going to be around, but then we look at to put dollars to actually build what they
did. You think it'd be that much harder? Yeah, because now to get it to to pass all the structural stuff, I don't know. Like I think it could be done, but yeah, you're right. You're probably gonna spend. Yeah. That's so the other option is just go find the existing shell and build within it. Yeah, for sure.
So that one kind of fell in our lap again. Very successful.
And when
project.
was this?
So we finished that. We actually started that April of 2020. So just after
Right as things were happening.
Yep. And then we finished that in spring of 21.
And when you say finished, you just renovated the units. Was it vacant when you got it?
No, completely vacant building. It was
16 vacant units plus vacant commercial.
But it wasn't even really units. It was just like open structure.
So it was approved for 16. So the guy had already done the environmental to convert the commercial. Like, was it at one point residential as well?
Yes, way back. Was.
But then it went to full commercial. So you're bringing it back to mixed use. So they wanted the environmentals passed. Was there any environmental issues with the building?
No,
and they had to do phase 1 or phase 1 and phase 2. Do you know?
Nope, just a phase 1.
Phase
so
1.
Everything was clean. The old guy had wanted to do condos.
Okay.
He come in and said, condos really isn't what we do, but we can make these numbers work for rentals.
Right. Okay. Yeah, actually, a friend of mine did something similar, or is in the process of doing something similar with the newspaper building in St. Thomas. The full commercial, turning it into, I don't know, it's like 20 some odd condo units. Well, what will be condo units eventually. So interesting project. So you purchased it for how much?
$640,000.
Wow, that sounds low. And that was, what was the real estate market doing right before? It was busy, but not crazy. It was moving up, but not crazy. Okay, and then what did you renovate that? Like that's a big project. You're talking basically how many square feet per one bedroom unit?
They average about 600-700 square feet.
Okay, and then plus your common areas, like your hallways and stuff. What did it cost you to do all those renovations?
So we were just under $2 million to do all the rentals. We were 2.5 all in.
2.5 all in. Okay, so let's look at what your rents would be. So on average, what were your rents per unit?
They average around $1,500-1,600 for one bedroom unit.
$1,550, we'll say. So you got $1,550 times 16, you said?
Yep.
And then what about the commercial units? Did you do something to those as well?
Yep. So we had built out we had 1,800 square feet where we built out the microbrewery there. So that one rents we're $12 a square foot there. So we're $1,800 a month.
$1,800 a month on that one?
Yep.
How big is that commercial unit, you said?
1,800 square feet.
It's 1,800 square feet. Sorry.
Yep.
Missed that.
And then the other
So 1,800 square feet times 12 then?
No. So it's for commercial, it would be That's your yearly.
Oh, yearly. Okay.
So we're
yeah, gotcha.
$1 a square foot a month.
$1 a square foot a month ish. Okay. Yeah. So 1,800 a year. And then you have another commercial unit as well, right?
So in the other, it's a 1,300 square foot office.
And so that's going to be 1,300. Yeah. All right. So that works out to be 27,700 or 900 a month. So this building's pulling in a fair bit. What are you into for taxes, property taxes there a year?
Property. That's a good question. They were still, because of the old building.
Haven't assessed it?
No.
Still not?
So we're still not.
Oh, they're going to slap you one day.
Yeah.
And they're going to tax you for 3-4 previous years.
We're going to get hit pretty hard.
Probably like, what, 25,000 a year you figure? Yeah. Yeah. So insurance wise, what are you paying on that?
I think it's about 6,000 a year.
That's not bad at all. That's wild. 6,000 a year? What are you insuring, half of it?
Yeah. No, we have fantastic brokers.
Oh, okay. Guess you'll have to share the contact with me. Utilities, what are you into for and what do you pay for there?
So when we actually built it, all of the utilities are billed back to the tenants, or they have them in their own names. So we just have common electrical there.
Common electrical. So you're what, like 1,500 a year or something like that? Yeah, that's not bad. Does each unit have its own mini split or heat pump?
We had built them exactly like how the older gentleman wanted it with condos. So each one has their own furnace with air conditioner. So they've got their own.
Oh, they have an air handler. Yep. Is it an air handler or it's a furnace?
Full furnace. Full furnace and an AC.
How do they make that work? Is it a furnace that can just like a 2-stage that can run on the lower stage? Because otherwise they're too powerful, right?
And we'll undersize them accordingly. So instead of your traditional 2-ton air conditioning unit, you get a smaller
little fella
1-ton guy.
Yeah.
And then same with the furnace. So we're often
so it's like a 20,000 BTU furnace or something?
No, there's still, again, with the 2 stages.
So it's a 40,000 that can operate at 20 or 18, something like that. And then they just program it to run on 1 stage. Gotcha. Okay. So that's very cool. I love how things can just be totally separated like that. Now water would still be centrally metered?
So yes, and then we've got sub-meters on, so we bill back the tenants.
That's such a pain in the butt. Do you have a service to do that?
No, we do that. We do that in-house. But
okay, who chases them for the money?
We build it right into the rent.
Do you do a flat rate in their rent, or you just
nope? So
do you auto deduct it out of their accounts?
We have a sub-metering system where we can, it's all transferred over the internet.
Yeah,
and we'll just have someone in accounting, at the start of every month. Read that.
Tell you what they owe.
Yep. And put it on their invoice. It goes on their ledger.
Yeah.
And when they're paying their rent for the following month, they're paying that water.
What program do they use to pay rent? Like how do your tenants pay you rent there?
So we're using Yardi for rent.
Yardi? So they can pay right through Yardi?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yardi is like the old school property management software, right? So I'm sure they brought it up to date, online
but they've
portal.
Been around forever.
Online portal. So what's it look like if you wanted to use something like Yardi? Like what are the benefits and costs?
I mean, similar to any property manager, we have the benefits, I would say, to the tenants are, all of communication is captured on there.
Mm-hmm.
They can, anytime there's a maintenance request, they're going through the system and entering a request. So we're tracking that. It then comes to our system. We're then assigning it to, either in-house maintenance or assigning it to a vendor, kind of thing like that. They can log on to, look at their lease ledger at any point in time / print off for tax purposes, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then in-house on our side, it encompasses everything from maintenance to accounting.
So when they go in and want to pay, they can do a direct debit out of their account? Can they do an e-transfer? Can they do it all? Like a bill payment? Are they a bill payee on all the big banks?
Not through the portal, similar to how you'd log into any type of portal. You can just go and make
it's like an interact transaction.
Very similar, yeah.
All right, yeah. So that's handy. So do you get people paying with credit cards or no?
Yep, that functions there as well.
So they can pay on a credit card.
They can. Yeah.
So if it means you getting paid, you're willing to pay the 3% fee.
We that goes back to the tenant.
They have to pay. If
they want the convenience of the credit card,
you just say you pay the fee.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, that's perfect. I'd let them all pay with credit card. You want the points? Pay the 3%. That makes tons of sense. Yeah. Okay. So very cool. What's that cost you? The service? Is it a flat rate or is it a per unit?
It works out to I think it's like $400 a month.
$400 a month. So if you scale up your portfolio, it still stays 400
to a certain point,
and then it'll go up to the next tier.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds awesome though. Like I like if you're going to self-manage, that's one of those things that
yes,
you would want.
you need to have, I would say, up to a certain, you can do so many things with spreadsheets, but up to a certain point, it just makes your life so much easier.
So Pendo, pen.do is something I used for quite some time, which you can take direct withdrawals out of their accounts, like have that automated, upload your leases. It has management tools. So it's probably a much more affordable version of Yardi that's not quite as good.
Right.
So that's an alternative that I've used, but it sounds like the one you've got is great. So this is why for self-management tools, I have a 1% in here, which works out to be $3,300 a year. What is that? Is that? Yeah. Okay. So you're a little bit more than 1% with that software if you just allocate it to that building, but you have other stuff too.
Correct. Yep.
Right. So I'm just going to leave that at 1% for your sort of management tools expense because you're self-managing then, right?
Yes.
And then you have some boots on the ground that you occasionally send out to do stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Landscaping and snow.
I mean, if you were to average that out, it was, call it $500 a month kind of thing. So $6,000 for the year.
Okay. And then miscellaneous, I always have just like $500 in there. But do you have any other costs that I haven't covered, like garbage and cleaning?
Yep. We have garbage, and then we clean the common areas, as well as, we put an elevator in the building. So we've got miscellaneous licensing fees, et cetera, for that. So if you throw in another probably $800 a month for
all that
miscellaneous stuff, garbage
cleaning, yeah, okay. So you go 800 times 12. Okay, so 9,600 a year for all that stuff. Okay. So now the fun part. So you're all in for like 2.6 or 2.5, you said. What did you buy it for? I'm sorry, never mind. I already did that part. So you're all in for 2.6. What did you get it appraised for at the end?
So when we did our takeout financing after stabilization, we were 3.7.
3.7. And to get it to that point, like stabilization was every unit was rented out.
Every unit rented for a year.
Every unit rented for 1 year. Okay. So how long did it take you to get to that point?
So from the point of...
You started April 2020.
Yep. To the point where we moved everyone in and was stabilized. So we finished in the spring of 21, and then occupancy, call it summer of 21, and then summer of 22.
Is when you got the refi.
Yep.
Okay. So in that time, when you tell me like you're in for about 2.5, did that cover all the carrying costs? So eventually at some point, like even when were you private mortgages up to that point?
Yes. Yep.
Did the seller give you a VTB?
Yes.
Okay, so you had the 600, or not the full VTB. Did he give you a full VTB?
I mean, it was
like 500 or something?
No, it was, yeah.
So he gave you a good VTB. What did you guys do to cover the 2 million?
So we actually brought in, so again, small town story. The gentleman had worked in real estate. He said, I know someone that lends on construction real estate all the time. So this gentleman arranged for our financing of the construction, brought in so we had a first position for the construction financing.
And then the VTB was in second?
In the second position. Yeah. And at that time, everything finished, reappraised, everyone was paid back.
Nice. So when you were doing that construction mortgage, you were probably 10% or so, or plus?
10.
Okay. And just paying on what you've drawn. Is that how they did it?
Yep.
Yeah.
3 construction draws. Yep. And then
you did it over 3 draws. Okay. So in the interim, when you're waiting to get your draws and you're waiting on your inspections, you guys were floating things in the meantime. So you had a little bank of cash to draw on.
Yes.
You strained yourself a little bit.
Very stressful.
Yeah.
For all the things in COVID and our first project of that size, it was a lot of learning.
Oh man. Yeah. So I know the feelings. I've been through it. I just had a house that was supposed to close, and I was going to pay out some private money in one of my Florida houses. And the day before, the buyers backed out. They gave up their deposit. They walked away. So anyways, and then, so now it's like, oh, well, I have all these things I had planned with that money that I now have to find other money for. So anyways, fun. This is
that's why we love real estate.
Yeah, that's why we do it, right? Okay, so did you go like CMHC, MLI Select or anything like that, or?
So because of we were looking into that option, we did go with traditional CMHC.
Traditional CMHC. So what amortization did you get?
I think it was 40 years we were able to get on that.
40, that's all right. And then what dollar amount did you get against that 3.7 valuation?
They did 85%.
An actual true 85 of the 3.7? Oh, wow. So that's like 3.1 mil.
Sorry, they did 85% if we were 100% residential. So we ended up being like 82%.
82.
So they trimmed it back a little bit.
So does around 3 million sound right?
Yep.
That's okay. So around 3 million, 40-year AM, what interest rate?
4.5%.
4.5. Yeah. You can probably still get around that now with CMHC programs, right? Somewhere
in and around there again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is nice to see that interest rates are starting to stabilize.
Oh yeah, so the overnight rates stabilizing and the bond yields are just going to do what they're going to do. Although our government will try and manipulate them with buying and selling, but yeah, the market seems to be planning for a recession. So that means demand for the bonds is going up. We're seeing yields come down a bit. Okay, so about this project, we are seeing. For you, let's just do a quick number. If you're getting a mortgage of the 3 million minus what you had into it, which I know I was a little conservative here, you guys got over $400,000 back, like in your pockets. That's the kind of BRRRR that you like.
That's fantastic BRRRR.
Yeah. So that's a grand slam there. So it took some time, took some stress. Obviously, your time's into it, which you can't really quantify here, right? Like you're managing it, but I like the idea of insourcing. Like you're bringing the team together. You are having the tools internally, so that if whoever's doing your management or whoever you have boots on the ground doesn't work out, you could just replace them. You still have everything set up. Whereas if you farm that out to an external management company, you might be like I was with my student rentals early on and like not even know who my tenants are. I literally didn't know. I had no numbers, no emails. I had nothing.
Yep.
That's not a good place to be. That's why I like the insourcing thing. Like still hire help, but know who your tenants are.
Yeah, and a lot of the time, exterior management will try to mitigate something. So you're finding out something 3-4 months where it's
they don't tell you, you don't know, you don't have your finger on the pulse. Yeah, I've never been a fan. Like, and not to say you can't do it, but I've never really been that comfortable with anyone I've hired. But maybe if I had an amazing property manager, maybe I'd feel different. So who knows? But anyways, looks like you guys got like $8,500 a month in cash flow on this bad boy. And what do you do with all that money? The $400,000 in your pocket plus another $8,500 must be burning a hole.
So we continue to roll that into new projects. So that goes into, future acquisitions. At that point we're continuing to build out, construction, purchasing land.
So give me an example of what you've done after that and taken that money to do.
So after that, we then moved to a small town again, just outside of Tillsonburg, Delhi, where we did 8 units in Delhi, where we again bought an old building that was a bank. So some fun renovations where we actually turned a 1-bedroom unit with bank vaults in it. So we cut through some abnormally large concrete to accommodate some units within this bank.
Interesting.
From there, we purchased the neighboring property, which was a single-story commercial building. Added a couple levels on that. Again, all within the same mixed use. So we're commercial on the front, residential like above and.
So that's the general MO. They're all main streets, small towns, and these towns are playing ball with you. They like the idea of what you're saying, and
they're all favorable to what we don't. Anything that we're asking, we're generally working within the guidelines that the city's line for us. We're not.
So like you're not going in and changing zoning. You're saying this is existing mixed use. We'll do that.
Yep.
Who are you finding? Like you had the brewery on the one, but who was the other tenant?
So in these smaller towns, there'll be like established businesses. So we've had good luck in the smaller spaces with insurance companies.
Yeah, I was gonna say insurance brokers, mortgage brokers, real estate offices. Those are probably like the 3 easiest.
Yep. And there we kind of stay in that bread and butter on the size that they want. And, we'll approach them in their old building where they're at and say, hey, we're building a new building down the road. Are you interested in new office space? And it's worked out multiple times for us.
So you just go right into wherever you see them and say, want to come nuts.
Some of those smaller operators, they'll be owner operators, right? So with some of them will walk in and actually talk to the decision maker right there.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I mean, like what you're saying, this just goes back to like you just got to start. Like, there's a lot of that. Like, that's not hard to fathom. Like, just going in and having a conversation. Hey, we own the building down the road, really nice, newly renovated office. Are you interested in that? And so they say, well, what's it going to cost me? And then you say, well, I'll give you a sweet deal.
Yep.
And what do you have to say, like, when that conversation comes up to get them interested? Like, because they're probably paying very discounted and, some old house that's been kind of retrofitted.
So we kind of go through the pros and cons. It's like, hey, whether they own the existing building that's, in poor shape and their landlord, does or doesn't do the repairs. So obviously, a new space is going to come at a certain cost, but also, the services that we provide, we'll charge a premium, but we've got the services to back up what we're charging. So to certain people, it doesn't fly, but for that clientele that's looking for that type of space, it's quite often a nice fit.
Mm-hmm. So you're just poaching existing tenants down on the main street. And anything else that's worked? Have you listed on realtor.ca? Have you posted ads to find commercial tenants, or it's all just been going up and approaching existing?
No, so we'll still on Realtor, various, however we're getting our marketing out, but we're within these smaller towns, it's quite off. We aren't getting businesses outside of those towns that are comfortable moving there yet because the population base isn't there. So they're businesses that are already there, that their businesses have done well, and they know that the community's there to support them, or have validated that I can run an office space here and still continue business kind of thing, and they're just looking to relocate. So quite often we're not getting large chains that are.
No, you're not going to get your Shoppers Drug Mart or whatever, but you're not big enough for that either.
Right.
Yeah, so you're getting some interesting tenants. Like, it makes sense, tenants. And I mean, I think a lot of people would think in a smaller town like that, the worry is, how will I find a tenant? And it seems like your recipe is sort of just make yours better.
Yeah.
And you said services. What services? Like, what are you offering them beyond just like a decent place that isn't falling apart?
Well, it'll be, your service within a commercial lease would be, maintenance.
Yeah. So you guys are handling all maintenance?
Yep. So their lease will be their triple net leases where, they're incurring some of that expense, but
you guys facilitate it.
We're taking care of all of that. So
and is there a prescribed rate, like all repairs will be done at this price, like, and like that's billed back to you kind of thing?
Yeah, like we'll outline depending on the repair that's needed, that there's a flat rate to have a look at it, and then we'll go from there. But if it's the kind of service where we're going to be there a lot faster than any vendor that they call up kind of thing.
And you have your own like full-time maintenance people that you send out?
Yep.
Okay.
And then as well as that, so it's just going above and beyond in these smaller towns, which again would be, we call them typical services that you'd see in a larger town, that just these smaller towns just haven't caught up. So whether it's the garbage service where there's a central bin and everything gets picked up once a week, or your snows removed.
So you guys do the central bin and that's big, right? All that stuff. Like a good snow contractor having a disposal bin. Yeah. So for you, what pays for the daily living? Is it your existing rental portfolio?
Yep. Because
it doesn't sound like you're really pulling anything out of these.
No, so we're very much still in growth mode. So it's the current operating business is what we pull out to live, but it's still very much everything is for any project that's completed and moved. It's or refinanced. That money then goes into the next thing. So we're doubling down on we purchased a bunch of lands and we're going to start developing in these small towns.
Okay, and so when you approach them to say develop a piece of land, like what type of plans are they open to?
As long as we're not changing the zoning, so you're
staying within zoning.
Yeah.
So what kind of land are you buying and what are you trying to do?
So these smaller towns, again, either whether we've experienced a lot of urban sprawl in these small towns, so we'll focus more on that downtown.
Oh, just existing downtown core.
Where there's, there may be.
Where are you finding land in the downtown core? Like we're talking like small towns with a main street strip.
Yep.
But
there'll be the land. It may not be, a vacant piece of land, but it may be a good sized lot that's got a very poor structure on it.
Like a house or something else.
Or, we bought a piece of land that had an old service station, they
gas
sold
station.
used cars. Yeah. Old gas station.
Yeah.
Then they tried to sell cars for years, and it was
Clean environmental.
yes.
And nothing in the ground, like the tanks are gone.
Yep. We had to pull the tanks and did all of.
You did that. Oh, so you did the environmental. So do you get a big discount when you go in and offer to do that? You must, because people don't want to deal with it.
So it depends on if the seller doesn't want to take the risk on that. So in this, he did not.
So he didn't even want to risk the environmental study.
He wouldn't even let us do a full
Yeah, of course not, because as soon as you
diligence.
discover it, he has to disclose it. So he won't let you do it. So it's just a pure gamble, and you guys obviously were willing to take it. So what in your mind was, give me the parameters of what you were thinking. Like you knew what you were buying it for. What did you think remediation might cost if it went that way? Can you kind of describe the deal and what it looked like?
Yep. So it was, again, an existing service station where we know we had to knock down the building, get an environmental. So we did our phase 1 environmental for this, and knowing that there was, oil tanks and previous gas tanks, it was for sure going to a phase 2.
Why would they even do a phase 1? You should just go straight to phase 2. I guess you can't. In those cases, there's going to be a phase 2. And phase 2 is where they actually do soil testing.
Correct.
And they'll do other tests too, right?
Yep. So we'll often do they'll do the drilling to do the soil. We'll do our geotechnical as well for our new structure.
So you're doing geotech to check density so that you can, because you're going to need that for part of your site plan application. So you're doing that all at once. So when they're core drilling, you just get your environmental company out to just take a sample?
Yep.
Okay.
So we'll often have those teams come together so that
Yeah.
the geotech doesn't need to come back and do his own drilling later. So
because that's like so expensive. The one development I did, it was like $18,000 for the core drilling for the geotech.
So then we'll go through and again, in this particular deal, we took on all the risk of what's the worst case scenario of.
And did you have a candid discussion with the seller about this?
To an extent. In particular, this seller was, he was take it or leave it.
Was he a listed guy? Like, was it listed, or were you dealing directly with him?
No, it was listed on the MLS.
And that's the hard part, right? If you're talking with him directly, but there's another bird chirping in his ear. Just tell him take it or leave it.
So it was it was a deeply discounted price on the land, but again, we're taking
all the risk. Yeah. So what would you end up paying for it?
So we bought that half-acre piece of land for $350.
$350 half acre in which city?
That's in Delhi.
In Delhi. I guess town, not a city. What's the population? 10,000?
Yeah.
Something like that? So it's not nothing. Like it's a decent town. Like,
yep.
Okay. So you're in for $350, but I mean, how far would you have had to dig down? Like, could you have been spending a couple $100,000 remediating?
Yeah, I think we had kind of penciled in, at the worst case, we'd be, 100 to 150 if we're removing.
Like a large amount of soil, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you had no idea if there was any cracks in the tanks ever or anything like that. And he was not allowed to operate it because his tanks were probably way too old, right?
Yeah, and he had actually purchased another dealership years and years ago and kind of just left this one to fall apart more or less. And then it just had come to time where he needed the capital from that land.
So what did it cost you to rip down that building and pull the tanks out of the ground?
So we're about $75,000
to do all that, just dispose of it. And then the testing was on top of that, which you got into what, like $20,000 in testing?
No, so we did the whole environmental for 50.
50?
Removing the tanks and doing.
Oh, that was all
2.
part of it.
Yep. And then about 25 to to
do the core drilling and stuff.
Yeah. And then 25 to rip it down.
Okay, 25 to rip down the building.
Yeah, it wasn't a large building.
That feels like a lot. I feel like you used to be able to tear things down for cheaper, but then again, I have never actually torn something down to dispose of it. So I've built new. I've never torn down. Actually, I tore down an old garage, but we did it by hand. We just started pulling pieces out. Okay, so interesting gamble. What was the long play on that? Like, what were you planning to do?
So we're planning to. We're actually going to be building condos on that site.
How many?
That is 23 residential and 2 commercials.
Okay, so sticking with the mixed use because that's what they wanted?
Yep.
So as long as you have, and what percentage split do they want on it?
So with the current zoning in that municipality, you need to keep 50% of your
Main level,
main
right?
level commercial. So it's always street fronting 50%.
So street fronting, so you can do residential on the back, and that's what you've set it up for.
Yep. So we'll do a residential, or if there's any amenities in the building, we're using like that ground
All on the
floor
main
for-
level. Yeah. That's so cool. What's it look like? I mean, the hardest thing with development is just the burn because of the time, because everything takes forever. Like, what kind of timeline are you on that one, and where are you at with it?
So we're kind of venturing into a space where we haven't done pre-sale condos, but we're a year in now.
You're a year in.
Yep.
So in the first year, you did all the remediation, got rid of all that stuff.
Yep. We've put together our drawings and our marketing information, so we're about to submit for SPA.
Okay.
Had our pre-consults and been through all that.
Did you do the pre-consultation before you even tore down the?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you do that before you even bought it? Like, was that part of your due diligence?
I would love to do that, but we're, again, small county, pretty slow.
Yeah. So they're slow. So you just figured, hey, we're within the zoning. They're not going to say no. It's just going to be a how.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So then we're a year in. We prepared all of our marketing information. We've built out like a sales center in one of our adjacent buildings to launch these condos. So we've anticipated roughly a year for sales,
Mm-hmm.
and then the following, if everything goes well with the sales and we're able to meet our sales target, qualify for our financing, that we'll be building at some point next year.
Oh, wow. You guys move quick. That's the trick, getting pre-sales done. Those are obviously challenging. Do you have somebody lined up, a realtor you're working with?
So a local realtor that does a lot of our deals is
and how are you
taking on?
How are you pricing them? Like on a per square foot basis? Like, do you know where your price point's going to be for those condos?
Not so, like, everyone's concerned about the sticker price, right? So I think we've got our 1 bedrooms in the like 350 range, and the 2 bedrooms are up in the mid fives.
And average square foot per unit?
The ones are in the 6 to 7s, and then the 2s are from like 650 to 850 kind of thing.
Nice. Okay, well, that's really cool. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of stresses that come with that. Are you financing any of this? Like, so far you're in for what, like 450, 500,000? Well, probably closer to 550 once you're done with all your consultants and everything like that. And then you're looking at, so you guys are just coming in with cash from your other projects probably to do that.
Yeah, to a certain extent. Like, we'll quite often, we've got a great pool of private financiers.
Yeah.
So quite often the bank isn't, again, with environmental issues and rundown building, will come in and have a private first position mortgage, finance everything else that we need, all the soft costs, etc. from previous projects. And then once we've got the sales and the plan to take to the bank, then we're taking and paying out that first.
When you look at your burn rate, like what it costs you on a month, like what do you figure it is on that project? Like, are you like $5,000 a month to carry it?
Yeah, it would be somewhere around in there.
Yeah, so you're $5,000 a month to carry it. So you know that a year is costing you, what is that? 5 times, so you're like 60 grand a year. So you're a couple of years, on the onset. I guess you just build that into your numbers and you know it works. Some people's developments, like I've talked to people, I'm not going to name names, like, you're like 60, 70, 80,000 a month, depending on what you're doing.
Yes.
And like, that'll make you sweat. And then your mortgage renewal comes up. And with these private mortgages, you're like 3% again to renew it.
Which is part of why, again, we're in the early stages of learning. We've learned a lot of those things, but staying in the smaller markets with the price ranges, it's a little bit easier to swallow and manage.
That's what I like about what you're telling me, because like you're burning on 500 instead of on 5 million, right? And the 5 million projects are probably a lot of fun, but I mean, I'd rather burn on the 500, and then once you get real confident with those small ones and you know what you're doing, then you start taking off the bigger ones. Yep. Yeah, that's real cool. So you've just I love about your story is just like you've graduated from one level, to duplex all the way up to development. It's the natural evolution, which is sort of where this show is steered over the last many episodes. We've been talking a lot about development because it's just like the next logical step. And for a lot of us, like, I don't know, I find myself, I grow a little impatient with the small stuff. Like I like the bigger, exciting project. Like I want to work on something big, and because then it justifies me putting the time. And I'm sure you feel that way too. Like you want to feel like it's worth your time to put it in.
Yeah, and 100%. And probably the biggest eye opener, and kind of as we went to the next stage, and when people are trusting you with their money, when we're bringing in investors, or we've got a private mortgage on, we need to be very confident in what we're doing. So we learn on the smaller projects, all of those things, then we can apply them in
for sure.
As we get larger, because we have a huge fiscal responsibility to all of us.
And I don't suggest anybody start with a project like this, like unless you have a whole bunch of odds stacked in your favor. It's not gonna make sense for many people on their first, but it's something you can work towards.
100%.
Yeah. So very cool. Where do people find you and reach you?
So if they're looking for more information, you can reach us on our website. So www.centurypropertygroup.ca. We're on Facebook and Instagram as well. If anyone
Century spelled with a S.
Yes, that's
SENTRY. Century Property Group.ca.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Cool. So that's we'll share that in the show notes. Anything else you wanted to share that we haven't covered?
No, I think we pretty much got it all.
We got it all. We went through a few examples. I'm sure you have plenty more that we could have dug in on, but I think we got some really cool ones here, lots of numbers. And it's great hearing your story. And you had come to the meetup, just for people listening to this. Was it the last one at West Ave?
A couple months
before
ago.
That.
But if anyone hasn't been, I'd highly recommend come out to the meetups.
Meetups I find are great for new guests coming on this show. Like I like to meet people. What are you doing? Okay, yeah. Let's have you on. So that's great. Appreciate you coming out. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah, great. Well, let's stay in touch. I'm looking forward to hearing updates on these projects.
Thank you, Andrew.
There are a lot of people out there talking about the infinite banking strategy and whether or not it makes sense for them. To find out what it's all about and if it's a fit for you, visit controlandcompound.com/Andrew Hines, where my audience can gain exclusive access to books, podcasts, and webinars tailor-made for real estate investors.